Market Intelligence Report, July 19, 2026. Geopolitical and macroeconomics. The United States-Iran fight stepped up again. Reuters reported 2 United States military personnel killed by an Iranian attack in Jordan. Washington renewed strikes on Iran, with Crypto Briefing framing an 8th consecutive night of United States action after the deaths. Iran's supreme leader said United States breaches show Trump's signature is worthless. Feeds carried Iranian missile activity toward Jordan's Aqaba corridor, intercept reports, Gulf market pressure, and claims of wider Gulf infrastructure hits. Treat secondary conflict wire detail carefully and lean on Reuters for hard facts. Jordan said it had not ordered evacuation of Aqaba airport or seaport. Trump urged Republicans to add Iran to a Russia sanctions bill. Oil spike and Hormuz bypass narratives returned. Mediterranean pipeline push. Elevated price spike risk through the strait. Russia pounded Kyiv in a major ballistic missile attack. Taiwan's president said democratic Taiwan must not become China's Taiwan. Chip stock sell-off dented institutional demand for CXMT's about $8.6 billion Shanghai IPO. Alphabet and Tesla earnings this week sit on the risk calendar. AI beta and Tesla's Bitcoin treasury. The macro split remains war and energy tails versus mixed equity/AI volatility into a weekend thin tape. General crypto market. Bitcoin held a mid-$60,000 band on the weekend risk tape. Yahoo Finance around cut showed roughly $64,370, about plus 0.5% on the session print, with a day's range near $64,263 to $64,867, still far below the about $126,000 all-time high. CoinDesk flagged large call spread interest targeting about $72,000 by month-end into the Federal Reserve meeting window. About $1.6 billion of crypto liquidity was described as sitting idle outside active ranges, roughly $542 million weekly earning no fees. Spot Bitcoin ETF primary market flows. Farside still shows the last completed United States session as 17 July. About $132.3 million net. IBIT about $136.5 million with a small FBTC redemption, after about $181.1/107.7/$79.1 million on 14 through 16 July. 18 and 19 July are not full primary session prints. Options and weekend geopolitics are doing more work than fresh ETF tape today. Wallet stats. XRP/XRPL validated ledger sequence about 105.71 million. Load factor 1 with about 30 peers. No major newly reported whale dump in the last day. Activity remains on the quieter 2026 profile. XLM, Stellar Protocol 27. Latest ledger about 63.55 million with solid throughput, about 659 operations and 318 successful transactions on the latest sampled ledger. Traditional finance plus crypto convergence. Broadridge's survey, CoinDesk, said tokenization is a strategic priority for about 84% of financial firms, with hybrid digital, traditional market design the base case. CoinDesk framed Trump pressure on Brazil's payment stack while dollar stablecoins already dominate about 90% of Brazil crypto transactions. Dollar rails winning even as non-dollar payment politics heat up. Electronic Transactions Association CEO flagged more traditional payments. Bitcoin startup partnerships. Kraken launched simpler cash-settled Bitcoin and Ether options aimed at institutions. Product design, not demand, as the bottleneck. Carry-forward stack from the prior session remains live. Bank of America Digital Assets and AI Leadership Bridge. Stripe, Swift Payments Contest. HSBC Orion Digital Securities Sandbox path toward a first digital gilt instrument in first quarter 2027. SBI led about $76 million Series C into EDX Markets institutional venue with its own clearinghouse. eToro strategic stake in on-chain perps exchange extended plus Zengo self-custody tie-up. Bitmine about $73 million of ETH added, holdings toward about 4.8% of supply on company updates. Bitcoin Japan planning an about $60 million raise via EVO fund, to finally buy Bitcoin after prior AI/infrastructure bets. Circle's president publicly defended long-term strategy after a deep stock drawdown. AZCOM Marua's yen stablecoin, JPYC, driver pay rollout in Japan is a real-world corporate stablecoin print outside the United States dollar complex. These moves still point to regulated distribution and tokenized market plumbing even while spot beta stays hostage to oil and chips. Regulatory developments. Headline of the window. United States agencies missed the Genius Act's one-year deadline for final stablecoin implementing rules. Treasury, OCC, FDIC, NCUA, and related packages largely remain at proposal stage. Cointelegraph tallied about 10 notices of proposed rulemaking rather than finals. Comment windows on customer identification and some AML pieces still run into August. Missing the deadline does not cancel the statute. Effective date remains the earlier of 18 January 2027 or 120 days after final rules, so issuers face a compressed runway, not a free pass. CoinDesk's anniversary analysis stress tethers USDT now sits on a multi-year compliance clock for United States platform eligibility, with reserve composition and foreign issuer registration still open fights, while USAT remains small. Clarity market structure remains the unfinished companion. Galaxy had already cut 2026 passage odds toward about 50%. Polymarket-style prints near the low 30% from prior days still color Senate ethics and recess calendar risk. France's gambling regulator ordered ISPs to geo-block Polymarket, illegal gambling framing, addictive mechanics, French users bypassing prior financial restrictions. CoinDesk and Reuters both on the record. South Korea began a sanctions process against Dunamu, Upbit, after a hack, with Virtual Asset User Protection Act penalty scope still fuzzy. United Kingdom politics. Allies said Burnham dropped a digital ID push to prioritize cost of living. Rails law exists. Final United States stablecoin rules and full market structure do not. DEFI and RWA tokenization. Constructive. Broadridge 84% tokenization priority. Uniswap governance voting 19 through 26 July on V4 fees and Robinhood chain expansion with fees routing into the Uniburn, unification. Kraken institutional options, EDX and eToro, extended institutional/on-chain derivatives capital. Bitmine ETH Treasury ad. Japan JPYC corporate payroll experiment. Softer tape. Crypto briefing said tokenized RWA spot market cap retreated from about $38 billion, while hyperliquid derivatives open interest printed roughly $3.6 to $4 billion. Leverage interest outrunning spot RWA mark-to-market. Attrition. Summerfi said it will wind down after 7 years citing an exploit. Ave Stani called it an OG access point. Near House of Stake passed HSP 027 to scrap developer gas rebates so all gas is burned. The Defiance Coinbase man memecoin round trip after Armstrong avatar whiplash remains a caution on social Q markets. Institutional RWA and fee-to-burn experiments advance. Consumer DeFi interfaces and incentive toys stay fragile. AI and blockchain. Model and chip tape stayed two-sided. Decrypt's GPT 5.6 versus Anthropic Fable 5 comparison kept frontier model competition in retail view. AMD overtaking NVIDIA inside the about $45 billion iShares semiconductor ETF plus CXMT IPO demand hit by chip sell-off show leadership and issuance risk inside the AI complex that still bleeds into crypto beta. Bitcoin Japan's raise path still mixes AI infrastructure stubs with a delayed Bitcoin treasury plan. Project 11's quantum recovery proof lets a wallet's key derivation path stand in as ownership after signature forgery risk, about 243 milliseconds on a laptop, but does not rescue Satoshi era coins. Cash's Zakura node targets payment network scale privacy, about 50,000 transactions per second ambition versus roughly 1 private transaction per second today. Open models, agent payments, and compute equity shocks remain multi-year infrastructure, and same-week Bitcoin inputs when chips or megacap AI earnings gap. Prediction markets. Product demand stays high while jurisdiction risk rises. France's ISP geo-block of Polymarket is the clearest sovereignty hit of the window, ANJ illegal gambling framing, after users bypassed prior restrictions. Prior Clarity year-end odds near about 32% and CalSure federal versus state scars remain overhangs. War-linked contract chatter on secondary feeds, Gulf state action windows, regime fall tales, shows geopolitics still books quickly on-chain, treat individual percentages as noisy. Design risk, cross-border gambling rules, and federal versus state authority remain the structural story beneath volume. Risk/opportunity analysis. Risks. Eighth night United States, Iran escalation after 2 troop deaths in Jordan can keep oil elevated and risk assets defensive. Hormuz and Gulf spillover is a multi-day regime, not a one-headline blip. Bitcoin mid-60s hold is fragile into Alphabet/Tesla earnings and chip leadership rotation. Genius final rules miscompresses the path to the January 2027 effective date and leaves Tether/foreign issuer listing risk unresolved into 2028 platform cutovers. Clarity still lacks a clean Senate path before recess. France's polymarket bloc expands prediction market distribution risk in the European Union. DeFi attrition, SummerFi, and memecoin social whiplash keep operational and reflexive risk elevated. Opportunities. 17 July spot Bitcoin ETF net inflows of about $132.3 million remain the last hard primary session bid. Institutions have not abandoned dips. 84% of surveyed financial firms prioritizing tokenization, Uniswap fee-to-burn votes, Kraken institutional options, EDX/SBI clearing capital, eToro extended, Bitmine ETH accumulation, and Japan's JPYC payroll pilot form a dense Rails stack. Genius as enacted law, even with late rules, still anchors a United States dollar stablecoin regime competitors must underwrite. Quantum recovery tooling and cash scale clients are long-horizon sovereignty tech, not day trade toys. Recommendations. Short-term, track whether Bitcoin holds the $63,000 to $65,000 band against Iran Jordan oil headlines and megacap AI earnings. Confirm the next full United States ETF session after 17 July's about $132 million print. Watch Genius proposal finalization calendars, August comment closes, versus January 2027 effective date math. Midterm, follow Senate Clarity ethics text and recess calendar. France and broader European Union prediction market enforcement. Tether/USAT and circle positioning under foreign versus domestic Genius clocks. Uniswap V4/Robinhood chain fee burn outcomes. HSBC digital gilt path. Stellar/XRPL activity if org messaging returns. Long-term, favor bank distributed and comparable regime stablecoins, tokenized securities with real transfer agent or sandbox rails, multi-jurisdiction RWA settlement, and open agent payment standards over weekend war premium price theater. Key metrics to watch. Bitcoin path versus $63,000 to $65,000 into Iran, oil tails, and Alphabet/Tesla earnings. United States spot Bitcoin ETF daily net flows after the about $181/108/79/$132 million 4-session sequence. Farside. 18-19 July are not full session prints. Genius final rule publications versus 18 January 2027. Effective date, foreign issuer and Tether platform eligibility clocks. Clarity Act Senate schedule, ethics language and year-end passage odds. Oil Hormuz transit, Iran Jordan/Gulf escalation and any ceasefire or sanctions bill prints. France polymarket geoblock enforcement and other European Union copycats. Tokenized RWA spot cap versus hyperliquid style derivatives open interest. Uniswap governance outcomes on V4 fees and Robinhood chain, vote window through 26 July. Semiconductor ETF leadership and HBM/AI earnings as leading crypto beta inputs, XRPL and Stellar ledger activity, and any return of org account product messaging. This is not financial advice. This has been your daily market intelligence report for July 19, 2026.